Nice and tight. It's Sean O'Connell, SOC, one of the most handsome, dedicated MMA commentators. I think he's actually up for the MMA World Awards Commentator of the Year, aren't you?
That's right. Very surely I will win that award. Absolutely. Make sure you go vote.
You sure it wasn't for a commentator with a beard, etc.? Wears red shoes. Look at that. Look at that. Now, come on. What happened this morning when you got dressed? What happened with the red shoes? Was it dark or something?
You don't like these red shoes?
I do like the red shoes.
You're lying to yourself if you're pretending you don't love these shoes.
I love them.
Your jealousy, it's not a good look for you.
It's resentfulness.
That's fine. Envy is one of the 7 deadly sins, and one I would not take this man to be guilty of very often.
Listen, I've worked with you a couple of times. You're a phenomenal commentator. You were a fantastic fighter. You were in one of my favourite fights of all time. You really threw it down. Were you heavyweight then?
No, I was a light heavyweight during my career.
That's 205 pounds. But now, are you still 205?
Not exactly.
Are you coming back?
Maybe.
Bare knuckle, you said?
You know, I actually am super intrigued by bare knuckle, especially bare knuckle MMA. So I've always said, since I retired, for the right amount of money, I would entertain offers. Weirdly enough, I haven't received any of those offers for the right amount of money.
You're my commentator of the year who's written a book.
Only one book? Written 2 books.
Fiction, by the way, aren't they?
Fiction. They're novels, available on Amazon. Hellbound Heaven Sent and No Place for Angels. You can go find them, buy them, review them, get one for your grandmother. Maybe not for your grandmother.
Right, business end now. I've worked with you a few times. As I said, it's great to work with you. You really know your stuff. No one knows as much as you about MMA, and you put it into practice. Beautiful words, on point when we're live at an event. Put into context what Renan Ferreira against Francis Ngannou means in MMA.
Well, it's the realization of a dream and a plan that I think a lot of MMA fans have had for a long time of, well, what does it look like when the best champion from that organization and the best champion from this organization can cross over and make something happen. Now, Francis Ngannou was the undisputed heavyweight king of the UFC. They were not able to retain him. They were not able to keep him because of, well, it's well documented, right? We give him an opportunity to not only come to the PFL to fight, but also to have equity, to be the commissioner of PFL Africa, which is something that's near and dear to his heart, and of course to explore his boxing opportunities. And in doing that, the PFL was able to secure the most dangerous man on the planet.
And he's become a bigger name.
A bigger name.
Yeah,
absolutely.
much bigger name.
A bigger name in combat sports than he was even when he left the UFC.
Did he beat Fury, in your view?
I thought yes, but I won't pretend to be unbiased. And look, I think Tyson Fury at his very best probably beats not only Francis, but every other heavyweight on the planet. That wasn't him at his very best, but still, Francis accounted so incredibly well for himself, only elevated his stock as a striker, as a combat sports athlete. And all while that was happening, we had to figure out in the PFL, well, who can you put in front of Francis Ngannou that's going to be a worthy challenge for the baddest man on the planet? Enter Renan Ferreira, changed camps, went to American Top Team, and really has blossomed.
6'8", rounded skills, knockout artist, but brilliant on the ground as well. Kind of quite mysterious figure as well because he doesn't speak English, and that kind of adds to his mystique in my view.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's this Brazilian Bigfoot, this Sasquatch that has the unbelievable explosive ability. You've seen the celebration video where he does the one-footed backflip, the capoeira celebration. Nobody his size can do that, including Francis Ngannou, which makes this fight so intriguing because we've seen big heavyweight fights, right? You've never seen a heavyweight fight ever in mixed martial arts with 2 athletes like these. One, maybe, like Francis versus Alistair Overeem. That's impressive pair of athletes. This is the most athletic and probably biggest.
I was going to say, I think it's arguably the biggest heavyweight matchup of all time in MMA.
If you take it like inches and pounds, or kilos and yards, whatever you're using over there, this is a matchup that really is second to none.
But Sean, it's also, if you take the fact he was UFC champion, it's almost like an organizational crossover fight as well, and I think that's what makes it extra specially big as well.
It goes back to what I was saying. It's kind of the realization of an MMA dream where for so long we wanted to see, well, what would the Pride fighting Fedor versus the UFC Randy Couture, what would that fight have been? We were never able to make it happen. No one was ever able to make it happen. Well, the PFL made this fight happen with Francis Ngannou a former UFC champ, and obviously Ferreira, who emerged as the PFL and Bellator champ, because in the champs versus champs over in Riyadh, he knocked out Ryan Bader quickly.
Well, you are listening to the MMA podcast for talkSPORT. I'm here with Sean O'Connell. Sean, some quick fire questions to finish off with. Francis Ngannou versus Deontay Wilder. Would you see it, and what happens?
I would love to see it. I would actually love to see it in a hybrid rules fight, because
What about 4-ounce gloves?
Deontay Wilder has talked about that, allowing clinching, cage work, dirty boxing, that kind of thing. I don't think you want to see Deontay Wilder learning how to kick, but I'd like a hybrid rules fight. Even if it's just Queensberry, I think that that's a great fight. And people don't realize how big Francis Ngannou is. Deontay Wilder is tall. He's a hard-hitting guy. He's long. But mass-wise, comparatively, they're hardly even in the same weight class. So I think Francis can take that one.
You love heavyweight boxing. Pick a winner between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois on September the 21st at Wembley. It's the Riyadh season edition, of course.
Anthony Joshua, when he is serious, when he is dialed in, is as dangerous as any heavyweight in the world. And we saw that against Francis Ngannou, where he wanted to go prove a point, not only for himself, but for the sport of boxing, for heavyweights in boxing. I think that he's reignited his passion for the sport, and Anthony Joshua is going to be dangerous for the next 3 to 5 years.
Brendan Loughnane's going for his second $1 million prize. He's in the semi-final of the playoffs here in Washington tomorrow night. You're calling the fight, of course. Can he win $1 million for the second time? And how do you see him against the Hawaiian?
Yeah, absolutely he can. I mean, Brendan Loughnane has as well-rounded a skill set as anyone else in this division in any organization in the world. He's certainly been the class of featherweight here in the PFL for the last several years. And he's hungry in a way that, there was a lot of talk, I don't know if I want to do the season again. It's a lot of activity. It's 4 fights in a short amount of time. Well, then he lost and he missed the playoffs. And that reignited the competitor in Brendan Loughnane. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about proving to people he's one of the best featherweights on the planet. And that's why I think that he's potentially on his way to another $1 million prize. But Kai Kamaka is fighting better than he ever has in his entire career.
5-fight winning streak.
5-fight win streak, and against really tough guys. And most of the time, Brendan Loughnane is clearly the better striker in his matchups.
Can I ask you about Kai? I think he's got one knockout, but most of his fights go to decision, like 80% of them. Is that because he's so comfortable in the office?
Well, you can use that as a criticism, or you can focus on why that's important and the positives of that. For Kai Kamaka in this fight against Brendan Loughnane,
very important.
It actually behooves him to push this a little bit later, see if you can get Loughnane to slow down, get some of that twitchy power off of Loughnane's early strikes, and push him into deep water. I think that's probably going to be the game plan for Kamaka. So look, we all love finishes. We love the big knockouts. We love people who get out of work early, so to speak. But Kai Kamaka has figured out in most of his fights that over 15 minutes he's the better guy, and that says something.
Obviously, I say you're deep into MMA. Can I ask you? Ronda Rousey has been talked about in the same breath, or Dakota Ditcheva has been talked about in the same breath as Ronda Rousey. Do you see in her the potential to be that big? Obviously, she's from Manchester. She's got Manchester City as the kind of club she follows. She's got Talia Santos in the final.
Yeah.
That's a great fight for her, in my view. Do you think she's got the potential to be a massive star in MMA?
She has the potential to be a superstar, but not for the same reasons as Ronda Rousey. Ronda was the pioneer. Ronda was the one that broke the barrier and got women into the UFC. And unfortunately, that's a milestone that can never be reached again, even for someone with the star caliber of Dakota Ditcheva. You can make the argument that it's going to be harder for Dakota to reach those heights of celebrity, but she absolutely is capable of it. First of all, because of how incredible she is as a fighter, but also she understands the media game, right? She knows exactly when to switch off that savage and become the sweetheart again. She's got the look, she's got the charisma, and when you have that, plus the ability to knock women out like she does, the sky's the limit.
I was going to say that about you, the looks, the charisma, and the ability to knock women out, but obviously we don't want you doing that. Have you finally, you've got them in red. What's the brand?
These are Nikes. These are Air Force Ones.
There we go.
They're the Flyknit Nike Air Force Ones.
Have you got any other colours?
Have I got any?
Have you
other
got them in
colors?
blue, pink, green?
Not the fly knits, but I have 100 pairs of sneakers. So yes, I have some of these in other colors.
100 pairs of sneakers out. Sean O'Connell, what a pleasure. You've been watching the podcast for the MMA channel on talkSPORT.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.